welcome back to my channel. And so April was kind of a crazy month for me, and I talked about a little bit in my first half of my wrap up that I kind of realized I had some books that I need to get to that I had forgotten about, and then I got some new books that had recently come out that I also wanted to kind of read because they just came out to kind of help boost them. And I was playing catch up a little bit with my TBR. So like I wasn't really reading all the books that I initially put on my TBR, so there are quite a few that I ended up having to carry over to the month of May. But let's get into what I did read, and I'm just going to do it in no particular order. Right here I have The School for Unusual Magic, The Equinox Test by Liz Montague. She is the author, but she also does like the little illustrations that are sprinkled on some of the pages. And this is, of course, a magic school book, but it's not a magic school book the way you think of some of the other magic school middle grades that came out. This one is a more lighter magic system and and has some whimsy, but it's very much based in real school problems. So in the School for Unusual Magic, we're following 3 different students, and they're anticipating the upcoming Equinox test. We have one that totally thinks she has it in the bag, like she's been studying magic for a long time and she's really confident in her abilities. And then we have 2 others that are kind of shaky and trying to figure out ways to figure out what's on the test so that they can pass. And there's a little bit of a cheating scandal going on here. So very like reality based problems for elementary school kids, but with a magical touch. And they were like mermaids and like magic users, and I'm interested in seeing how this world continues to develop as the series goes on, but this was a cute, quick read. So I also read King of Dead Things by Nevin Holness, and this one is a Black British urban fantasy. I've talked about it on here before, but there are just not a lot of books that are coming out by Black British authors that are based in their community. So I do try and pick them up and read them. So I was excited when I heard about this one because I'm like, oh, it's magic. But at the same time, I was a little bit hesitant because sometimes when it says that it's Caribbean inspired fantasy, it ends up being very like westernized, European inspired fantasy with a touch of Caribbean culture. And I actually thought that this did it very well. It had a good mix of Caribbean traditions and foods and little like little things that we are skeptical about alongside the mythology. So it didn't just feel like the author looked up these characters and just decided to put them in the book. I thought it was like seamlessly woven together, like to feel like a greater community. And so in King of Dead Things, the title suggests we do talk about dead things. So there is this magical object that we're looking for that has the ability to eat magic. So it causes these 2 boys to cross paths, and they have to use their magic or the dead to their advantage. One of them, he has amnesia and he has these healing powers, but he doesn't know much about himself. And the other is the Duppy King's son. Overall, I thought this was a good fantasy, well-paced, and this is a duology, so I think I'll be picking up book 2 whenever it comes out. I haven't seen like a cover or date yet. Hover Girls by Geneva Bowers. So I have been following Geneva Bowers for a minute now because her art is like everywhere and it's beautiful and it's so cute. And I had seen her art in a couple of like picture books and board books, but I was excited when I saw she had this comic book series. So this is also originally a webcomic. The webcomic is still up and available, so I will link it in the description box below in case you're interested in reading it. It's basically the same storyline, though I do hear there's some slight changes, like they expanded on it a little bit in here. I'm not sure. I have not read that one. I do want to go read it just to compare the differences, and plus the art here was like a little bit more cleaned up compared to the webcomic. And for me, this was a very nostalgic read. If you like magic girl fantasies, if like that was your jam in the 2000s, if you liked soap operas and you remember that feeling of running home to watch General Hospital or One Life to Live or All My Children, you're gonna have fun with this one. And it like, I don't know how well that's going to translate for the teen audience, to be honest, because like I said, it was very nostalgic for me, but like those soap operas got canceled when I was a teenager, aside from General Hospital, which is still running, but that's not really a show. Like, the kids don't go running home to watch their soaps. The kids aren't like rushing to watch soaps in the summer anymore, because things have just changed so dramatically. And as far as the plot, so when it was the slice of life stuff with the girls moving to a new city and trying to find their footing, like, because we have one girl who, she just, her whole thing is she wants to work, make money, survive, watch her soap operas. The other girl, she's trying to be a fashion model and a fashion designer, and when they find out they have magic powers, like, she is all about the action sequences and the magical transformation. So it did poke that kind of fun at it, but when it was just about that type of stuff, I thought it really landed. And we do have like the archetype of the bubbly happy girl and the very mean grumpy girl here. When it came to, okay, now what's the reason for them having these magical powers and who's the villain, that's where it got really weak, and I think the story could have used some more developmental editing to get to the point, because then when the villains finally came in, it felt kind of clunky, and like there wasn't much thought put in, and there was like a lot of just explaining that really didn't make any sense to me, to the point where I can't really recap the motivation of the villains. So this was an okay book, but that part, like, it started to fall flat at the end for me. And as cute as the art is, as fun as it is to remember those magical days, that part could not be saved. We have The Secret Library by Kikla Magoon, and I have thoughts on this one. I thought this was going to be so fun and cute. I'm like, oh, magical library adventure. And Lee, we're following this girl. She's 11 and a half. Her name is Dally, and she is biracial, and she's living with her white mom, and her dad passed away when she was younger, and her mom is like trying to groom her to be taking over the family business, and that's like her entire personality. And I do mention her biracial heritage because it is super important to the plot. I don't want to give too much away about this, but she ends up getting this letter after her grandfather died. She was supposed to wait till she turned 21, but she breaks into the safe and takes it anyway. It gives her instructions to go to the secret library. When she gets to this library, she finds out she can pick books off the shelves that have family secrets, and she kind of sees these parallels to ancestors that remind her of herself. Now, one of my biggest complaints was I think this was way too long. I understand what the author was trying to do. I really do. I was not a fan of the execution. I think that this should have been split into like a chapterly series and it would have worked better. I have read kind of books that do explore this time travel fantasy thing, and for all that she was trying to put into the book, I really do think this would have worked well as a smaller series with different installments versus one big large book. And also, I feel like Dally at times got lost as a character to the adult ancestors whose stories she was learning about instead. Like, this could have easily been a YA, or even like write it up a little bit more to adult, because there was just so much that I was trying to tell that did not feel like the voice of an 11-year-old, in my opinion. And I don't know how much the kids would be interested in this one outside of like maybe a school read, a Black History Month read. Like, there's a lot of history in here and a lot of specific messaging she was trying to say, but I didn't find the adventures to be super exciting. Like, they would be exciting if you're like an adult and a history buff. I don't know how exciting they would be for the kids. So those are my biggest critiques of this one. Like, I don't think it was horribly written, but I had a hard time finding the urgency to want to pick this story up. And it did end up having some of my like book pet peeves that I just cannot stand. Now I'm going to get into the picture books that I read during the rest of the month. So first I'm going to start with Soul Food. It's by Erin Danielle Russell and Tanisha Anthony. This was a story of a girl who is half African American and half Korean American, and both sets of her grandparents are coming to visit, which she is super hyped about, but she wants to cook a special dish that is going to appeal to both of them. And she doesn't want to necessarily have to choose one side, and she doesn't want to choose something that is not from her culture. And I thought this was great that she ends up coming up with a fusion dish called kimchi gumbo. So many times I feel like in specifically the black community within the US, they kind of force mix people to pick a side, like, and your side better be black. And we're not, I'm seeing like the younger generation kind of starting to say like, no, people are equally both and are able to embrace that side of themselves. And this book is just going to aid in that where idea that you don't have to pick one or the other. You don't have to lean just one way. You can fully embrace both cultures and appreciate how they come together and make something unique. So I love the messaging in this one particular, and I think like it's going to be great to lesson for all kids, but I think mixed children especially are going to be able to see themselves on the pages of this story. Then I read Churro Stand, which is by Karina Nicole Gonzalez and Crystal Quiles. So in Churro Stand, we're following two children. They are Mexican and their mother runs a churro stand in New York City. They go with her daily to work after helping her bake the churros and get them ready. And she goes out there daily and, sells her churros. On this particular day, sales are a little bit slow, so they're trying to come up with creative ways to get people to buy. And then they have a little bit of trouble with the weather and they kind of have to come up with some creative solutions. And the author said she was inspired just seeing these mothers go out and work hard every day to provide for their children. And as children, you don't really think about the sacrifices that your parents make so that you can have a good life. So I like that this kind of highlights it for them, even if they don't fully understand, like, oh, this mom is grinding every day for her family. Also, churros are just like amazing. And I know I was like at the bakery at the time I read this, like trying to find the churros, and I was so upset because I walked like 20 minutes to a Mexican bakery and they were out there like, oh, we're making churros later. And they're like one of my favorite street food like snacks. I also read Mama's Library Summers. It's by Melvina Noel and illustrated by Dara Peoples. So this one was not what I expected, and I feel like a lot of the context for this one was actually in the author's note as opposed to being on page in the story. So we see these two girls and their mama pulls up to the library, drops them off, and gives them the instruction that they can only get black books, and I believe they have to get 10 of them, if I recall correctly. And so they have to go to the shelf in the way back of the library to be able to find these black books, and there's not a lot of options for them, but they kind of make do with what's there and get lost in the pages of like the tales of like civil rights heroes and stuff like that. And again, all the context I feel like for the kids is in the author's note. Knowing the history of black books and seeing where like the journey like they've gone through, know why the girls were picking up books and struggling. The kids of today who have more options are not going to know that. Like even the kids from when I was up wouldn't really know that because we did have some black children's books more options than the ones that the girls had in Mama's Library Summer. And obviously now, like, you shouldn't struggle to go into the library and find a black book. So I feel like that context was missing because it doesn't like present right off the bat like what year it is or anything like that, even though I can look at the pictures and tell. And it feels like this book was really written for like nostalgic purposes by the author. And I find that there are some picture books out here lately that are more like for the adult reader than the child reader. And it's something that I've talked about with an educator friend before, and we will try and read some of these stories and discuss them because she works with children that age, and it's just like, how are kids supposed to know this and be able to relate to this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't, and like, yeah, people can make the argument, oh, we can start a conversation. Again, the the words on page are not telling you the story to be able to start the conversation. So you have to start the conversation first, read that, and then expand on it again because not much was said on page. What I'm saying, like, I was not a fan of this one because like it didn't do what it needed to do. So that was everything that I read during the month of April. An alright reading. I had my ups and downs. I have some books obviously that I'm still working on, and let me know if any of the books that I talked about in this video sound interesting to you. If you made it this far, leave me a rain emoji because April showers bring May flowers. And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!